tear, it falls and hits the ground. A tree, it falls without a sound. A bird, it calls and sends you home. A man, he sits in the cold all alone.
Hi, Curtis. Welcome to the Joy of Sunflowers. Thank you so much for joining me. Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
Oh, thank you for having me. Of course, like you said, my name is Curtis Stephenson. I live in Ottawa, in Ontario, Canada, the capital of the country. 44 years old, and I'm going through the IVF journey with my partner Sabrina, and couldn't be more happy to do it. This is my first kind of foray into the IVF world. I didn't really know a lot about it before I met Sabrina. So it's been a very kind of steep learning curve in seeing what she's been through, what the process is. And Sabrina is very well knowledgeable about it. So I've become kind of like, just by gleaning off information, have done a deep dive into that world. I work and manage a tasting room in Ottawa. So I'm all about wine. Wine is my passion. It's been that way for a good 25 years since I first started getting into the industry. So I love what I do. It's a fantastic job. I like to bring lots of passion and inspire people in a very kind of a poetic fashion in terms of my work. And so I like to always like support that with what Sabrina is doing as well, because she has a lot of passion for, having kids, and so do I. And it's something that is very important to both of us. And it's very difficult, as like everyone knows, but it's something that I've always wanted and she always wanted.
Yeah. So before we get into it, I was going to ask, like, is it something that you've always wanted? Like, did you always know you were going to be a dad? Did you always want to be one?
Oh, from a very young age. I think when I was like even in my 20s, I was still a kid, you know, but I had a really good upbringing. My parents were fantastic. I have an older brother and an older sister, and we had a great upbringing. And I think from like a very young age, I knew that I wanted to have a family, and like the biggest family that I could. Of course, that didn't happen through some, previous relationships. There was some, discrepancy on having a family. So that sort of is what led me to now, even though I am, more of a, mature adults. That's something that I think is still something incredibly important to me. Having a family is basically like, that's my dream to have.
Yeah. So, how did you sort of come into this journey? I've heard it from Sabrina's side of things, but yeah, I'd love to hear like the story of like how you met and sort of how you
Yeah.
came into the journey with her.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really funny story because Sabrina and I have the same best friend, and we never met for a good, 15 years, even though we have the same best friend, because um, our best friend is Samantha, and Sabrina and her met when they were just kids going through like elementary school, and they were best friends for basically their entire life. I met Sam through our work, and we became best friends. But there was some kind of like we just never really connected because there's like kind of two different worlds, right? In terms of like friendships, especially within the restaurant industry, which is where I met Samantha. So we never really connected, and we both had different partners at the same time as well. So it took a couple of, us splitting up with our partners, and then we met and just instantly connected. And it was so funny because they were like, I can't believe we've never met before, because the chances were like always there for us to connect through our mutual best friends. But then when we finally did, it was at like the right moment. So it almost seemed like fate, even though like fate is something that's sort of terrible to think about when it comes to, you know, the pain and hardship that we all go through our entire lives. But it really was an amazing kind of moment, and we just quickly became um, not only just like partners, but like best friends, and just loved all the same things, and it just sort of went from there. So we both have to thank Samantha for really being that kind of pivot when it comes to us connecting. But it's been just an amazing journey like ever since.
Yeah, no, I love your story and how you met. And it's so true. When you've got a mutual best friend, you'd think that you'd have met already, or like at least like passed each other like at a I don't know, a birthday party or something. But yeah, like when you have different friendship groups, it's really like you kind of don't want to mix them, because usually there's a very big difference in like personalities and all that. So you just kind of like keep them separated. But yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
you can't do that anymore.
No, absolutely not. No. And as a funny kind of anecdote, we did meet very briefly at there was like a store, I think it's got like Sporting Life or something like that. And I saw Sam and Sabrina walking by. And so I went up to sort of like say hello. And I keep teasing Sabrina about this all the time. And it's like this is when we like first met, before we first met. And I went up to the store, and I like surprised Sam, and she was there, and she totally blew me off. And it was like, oh hey, how's it going? And she's like, oh and then walked away kind of thing. And it's like that's when we first met. She's like, I can't remember that. But and then it's like, that's the way it is kind of thing. And it's like I keep like teasing her about that kind of first moment.
Yeah, those first moments are the best though, because they're always something really like awkward and usually not very good for one of you. So hey, I think
Yeah.
you came off looking pretty good and she came off looking pretty mean. But I'm glad you guys are together now, because I've seen your pictures online, and like I follow you guys on Instagram, and you guys are so cute. Like I love your relationship. It looks so lovely and just so supportive. And the things that she was saying about, how you guys are moving through, this process, it was just really lovely to hear that, you're so supportive and that you're sort of there for her. So yeah, how did you guys progress from meeting and like, yes, I want to be with you, to then going on this, IVF journey?
I mean, that's a very good question because it was just like literally we meet, develop this relationship, and she was already going through an IVF journey when I met her. So I was really surprised at how I was just like, you know what, like I think that's like fantastic, and like I fully support that. I was surprised at how I wasn't scared at all. Um, and I was just like, yes, like let's, you know, I will absolutely keep supporting, you and do whatever I can. And it was still with she of course was separated from her previous partner, but the IVF journey was still going through what they had started. Um, and then after that unfortunately failed, we started our own journey together. But it was just like it honestly for me, I didn't even think twice about it. I loved her so much that it was just like this is just like even though we've only known each other for a very short time, like I knew that this was what I wanted, and she felt the same kind of way. So it's like let's just like start it all over again. And that's when I really got into that whole world in and everything. And it's just so much, right?
Mm.
But she is just incredibly versed in it and educated me on kind of every step on what to do. But I was just like, yeah, let's do this, because of course it's what I wanted. I've been wanting a family for a very long time. That's what she wanted, and we're just like, look, we're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
And we quickly, she moved in with me in a small apartment in center town in Ottawa, which is way too small for the two of us. So we eventually bought a house together in Quebec, and just to have that space for a family. And it's just been, yeah, everything since.
Yeah. I know she said that you were there for her first loss.
Mhm.
So how was that for you? Like, what was the experience like? Because I think she said it was with your embryo as well.
Of course, yeah. So she went through a loss with her other partner, and then we went through a loss like ourselves, because we thought that we had it. And when it comes to like doing IVF, like you always think like, let's not do tests. Let's not do tests. Let's wait until we do the tests. But of course, you do them because you can't help yourself, right? And everything was looking really, really good. And then we get to that first ultrasound appointment, and then you see kind of this like black hole, and it's like there's something wrong. And of course, like your heart drops into your stomach, but at the same time, you think like, you know what, like at least I think, you know what, there's still some hope, there's still something, we may be able to like, this might not be the end. She of course is very realistic, how realistic she is, because she knows through this community how things are, whereas I am completely new to it, and I want things, I have this crazy optimistic kind of view, um, to see things that, oh, no, it's going to be okay. Of course, it wasn't okay, and we had that miscarriage, and absolutely devastating. And from my point of view, it was all about just supporting her. It was a very, very difficult time, and we were driving all around, going to Toronto, driving back. Meanwhile, she has this kind of loss, and it doesn't process. And at a certain point, everything sort of like comes together, and then your brain just sort of gets it, and then it gets into your heart, and that's when that tragedy really comes through. And that's what sort of happens for Sabrina. And Sabrina, I'm just absolutely amazed in how her body and mind and heart processes things, because they're, of course, it's incredibly difficult because what you put into it, and I say what she puts into it is so much more than what I do. Like as the partner, my responsibility is really to support her, because I'm not the one taking shots every day. I'm not the one taking 25 vitamin pills every day, and regulating diets and things like this. And so when all that pain and journey results in that tragic loss, it is just, for her and for anyone who's gone through it, it's the most tragic kind of thing, because there's so much that goes into it before, because there is that event, but there's also everything, that year-long process that goes into it, and your heart and your whole soul. So when that happened, it was just like, of course, like lots of tears, and whatever I can do to comfort that, and call doctors after hours and see what went wrong and what we can do. Of course I'll do that. Like I don't care who I'm annoying at that point. But she is brilliant, because she goes through, she feels everything really through, and then it's like that tragedy never leaves you. But then it's like, okay, you know what? We're gonna make this better. We're gonna start again. What can we do that was different to start really making things that doesn't happen again, right? And so we started almost like immediately after that tragedy to start the process again with a new doctor and a new kind of protocol.
Yeah. Yeah, she was saying it was quite a hard time. So how did you deal with it? Because I mean, I know you said you were focusing on her and you know, you were all about sort of helping her, but how did you feel while you were going through the same thing? Because obviously I know she obviously went through quite a lot beforehand, but you're in there with her, you're seeing it, you're going through the trauma alongside her, even if you're not necessarily feeling it or you are feeling it. So how did you go with that?
I was lots of tears, you know, lots of tears with Sabrina. Um, I mean, like I said, I thought we had it, and well, right now, it was it was extremely hard. Um, Dealing with it, we all deal with um, that kind of tragedy in very many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Um, I really, well, wanted to be like stoic about it, you know, by myself. Um, I didn't want to, of course, like I shared that kind of like those tears with Sabrina, but on my own time, it was always with me, and I am a kind of person who, you know, okay, it's kind of I came from a family that didn't like to show a lot of emotion, and so I basically put myself like to work, so I, you know, would work more to sort of like get through that. But I always had moments where it was like a quiet moment to just almost like be in a corner. You want to pull the sheets over your head kind of thing, right? And just um, like be alone, right? Um, so I had lots of times like that. And then when it was with Sabrina, it would just be a lot easier to deal with it because we were very communicative between ourselves. But I definitely had a lot of moments where I was like at a loss and just like I don't know what to do kind of thing. And that's what I think like a lot of people go through as well. Like just like it's just what do I do here? There's no kind of like you can follow every protocol in the books when it comes to like going through this process, but like when it comes to a loss, it's just like there's no you don't know what to do. And so you're just kind of like in this kind of limbo sometimes. And so sometimes I felt like I was, you know, in a limbo until I was with her. And then we could, once we were together, I felt, you know, a lot better because we could talk about it and share the loss kind of thing.
Yeah, it's hard to share it with other people as well, because then you're like, are you going to say something okay and like helpful, or are you going to say something that is going to make this whole thing worse? So I
And
can
then there's
understand
like,
that.
yeah, and you know, when it comes to, you know, family and friends, you know, I'm very open about, you know, our journey. And so, you know, talking to like my mother and my father about it was fantastic. And but not it was surprising once I reached out to some friends, and everyone kind of has someone that has gone through IVF in some kind of some degree of separation. So I was really surprised once I started talking about it with, you know, other people that, you know, they were very supportive, but you know, I was very wary about it at first.
Mm.
Um, it was great to just, you know, talk with others because again, I come from a very like much of a past where it's like it's difficult to talk about it, but once I did, I was filled with a lot of support.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have the same sort of story where they're like, you know, as soon as I started talking about it, I started hearing about all these other people that have gone through a similar thing to myself. But there've also been obviously times where people have said maybe the wrong thing, or, you know, but people do try and you know, they're trying to support you and try and help you. And you know, normally it's just coming from a loving place, and that wrong thing might just be all they can say because they don't know what to say.
It can trigger, right? And I've noticed this myself, where I've had to unfollow people on, Facebook or Instagram that just say the wrong thing, and it's just like, you know what, like, and it's just like I don't want. The last thing you want to do is lash out in anger and frustration, because that never really puts out that positive kind of vibe into the world. It's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna like cut ties, and that'll be that.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are you going right now? Because I know you guys are hoping to do another your final round, I think she said. It's your final?
Yeah, like, I mean, honestly, like after, this will be our like for egg retrieval, this will be our fourth round. And with everything that she's basically been on medication for 3 years, and it's taken a toll on both, like, her physical and mental minds, and mine as well. And of course, like, the cost of it is like incredible. But we have like lots of hopes for like this round. We've got a great doctor. Um, so we're we got two really good eggs on the last egg retrieval, and we're going to go back in 2 weeks for another one, and hopefully get like another like few, hopefully more, that will really like just like get to the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Well, I'll be praying for those eggs and hope that
Me
you
too.
get
Yeah.
yeah. And did you go for testing for yourself, like to see how, you know, how your fertility is, and what were the results?
Yeah.
Like, am I sharing?
Yeah, no, I did. I did when it came to our first round together, or her second round. And I mean, I've got a great sperm count. There's millions of them, which is fantastic. Although the only problem though was that my morphology is extremely low. So it's about 1%, and usually you want about like 4%. So that made a little bit of a problem. But because there's so many sperm, that it just takes a little bit of time to find like the right ones. But that definitely is a male infertility factor when it comes to like our kind of process. But yeah, I did.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you guys do like the more specific sort of where they actually pick out the correct sperm that they want to use, and yeah,
Yeah,
and put it on.
actually, they like spend a lot of time, and they pick out ones that don't have two tails and a microphone. They find they'll find a good one out of the billions that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but it
how,
was
sorry, what were you
sorry.
saying?
I mean, it's just a really kind of I mean, the whole process is kind of strange, right? When it comes to like, I need to like make a sample, things like this, things that I never thought I would, ever do in my life. And then like again, like for like the male, it's just literally as easy as like creating a sample, making sure you're healthy. But the whole process is like a little weird, right, at first, but needs to be done. I think for any male going through IVF, they absolutely should get their sperm tested, just to see what's going on there.
Yeah. And how did you feel after that diagnosis? Because I know, you know, it can be quite confronting when you get a diagnosis of something, especially when you're just like, but is that a thing? Like, what do you
Yeah,
mean
no,
you can have two tails? What?
I know, yeah. I didn't know what to expect, you know. Um, I try to keep myself like in relatively good shape, but I mean that to me really means nothing. I mean, again, like I'm 44 years old, so I of course expected to be, there to be, you know, not like the best like in for like compared to like a 25-year-old. But I didn't really know about, morphology and things like that when it came to male factors. And then learning about it, it's like, okay, well, you know, um, it makes a lot of sense. And learning that, okay, yeah, you've got, 3 million sperm, but only like a few of them are really good. It's like, oh, it was kind of like a light on because we Sabrina had tried and I had tried naturally to get pregnant, but there is zero way that that would have probably happened based on my morphology. So really, IVF would be the only way for us to actually get pregnant based on my morphology. So that would be like all on. So that was like kind of my eye opener. It's like there's no way that I will get Sabrina pregnant just based on us trying to do things naturally. That was like my, oh wow, it's on me.
And how did you sort of process that? Because obviously, I mean, yeah, that's quite a lot to take on.
Oh yeah, I mean there's definitely kind of like in a very kind of a selfish way, like an ego hit, where it's like, oh, like I'm not, I can't produce, and it's kind of like you feel a little bit like ashamed, and also that you're not, you know, you want to give this person that you love like a family, and it's like you can't physically do it, um, just naturally, and it's a little bit heartbreaking, right? And that you sort of have to go through this process because of that, and there's of course like male and female factors, but I mean, I took it like, as like a very big hit, kind of emotion, like, oh my God, like you feel like it's my fault. You feel guilt.
Mm.
So I definitely felt that kind of guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the grieving process, really, isn't it? Like, because yeah, because you had to sort of deal with the fact that you have this issue. And then of course we go through that whole like, it's all my fault, I suck, even though it's not a choice. It's
No,
something that's happened. It's crappy and it sucks, but it's not like your fault. You didn't like purposefully go ahead and be like, I'm gonna make so my sperm's really annoying. You didn't. It's not, you didn't do anything. Like
yeah,
it
of
just
course. I mean that eventually, and that's,
mm,
and that kind of guilt is levied by, communication with your partner, and it's just like, no, it's like it's not either of our faults. This is just what, our bodies are doing, and we really can't determine that mentally speaking, right? So
yeah, because she was saying she's got some issues as well. So then yeah. But I think sometimes it can be a problem when there's only one partner with an issue, because then they feel all the guilt, and because the other partner doesn't have the issue, they're like, oh well, if you weren't with me, and so I have found that when there's two people that both have an issue, it's kind of like a bit easier for them to both kind of like accept it and move past the guilt part. But yeah, the guilt thing is such a monster, because it's like it's not a choice. you know.
yeah, it's like, and because you're both in the same position where it's like you both want to give each other a family, and you do have those moments where it's like, you know what, like I wish I could just like do this for you because you love each other so much. But it's just like you have to like really take a step back for a moment and just be like, you know what, like we're both going through this, and so we have each other, and we just need to like support each other like through it.
Yeah, and I think you guys do, like from now. I've spoken to her, I've spoken to you now, and it does seem very much like you're on the same page and you're there for each other, and I think that's so beautiful and wonderful that, you know, you're there. And that's really all you can ask for. Like, that's all you can have when you're going through these, you know, trying sort of times. So yeah, I just think you guys are beautiful couple.
Oh, thank you.
So um when you got the test results, did you have like a weird moment in the doctor's office where like you didn't hear anything they said when they told you the diagnosis, or was it just like one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, okay, and then you took in everything?
The test results for what
So
specifically?
so for your male factor.
For my male infertility, like, it was funny because we did it, of course, like everyone does things like through Zoom with our doctor.
Oh, okay.
That was when we had a doctor in Toronto. So we traveled there. I left my sample, and we traveled back, and it took like a little bit of time to get the results back. And we I got them back, and I don't know, like it's basically like might as well be in like Greek because I can't really say what
Yeah.
all these results mean. Like I have no idea. So we hopped on a Zoom call and with the doctor, and he was actually like very positive. He was like, you know what, you've got extremely low morphology, but your sperm count is really high, so it's really not a problem. So I from that initial thing, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm okay. I've got like a clean bill of health until I started to, talk to Sabrina about it and then start to like really research it. I'm like, you know what? It's actually, like kind of really, really low. And it definitely factors into that. It was just like the doctor was just like, I mean, as doctors do, they spend, 5 minutes with you and then it's like, and then they're gone kind of thing. And it was just like, no, everything looks fine. You're good. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not feeling really good. Um, and so doing that little bit of research, it's just like, okay, like there's definitely some male factors there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like most, I mean, everyone I've talked to has had some kind of experience with doctors in terms of like they tell you what your diagnosis is. Maybe they give you a piece of paper that kind of gives you like a basic outline, and it is written in gobbledygook because it's in, doctor language. You know, you need a degree to read it in actual medicine. So then you take to Google. They tell you don't do that, and they're like, well,
Yeah.
explain things to me in normal people terms then. So then we take to Google, and then we find out that it's actually not exactly what they said, and it's like more complicated, or there's more to it, and just drives you nuts, doesn't it?
It can, because you can just, spiral, very easily based on like there was certain things that are like, what is this? What does this mean? What does this mean? And Sabrina is amazing because she's basically like, her brain is like Google for like infertility. She knows exactly like how do you know what this is? She's like, because she spends a lot of time, she's very passionate about it, and she, is part of a big community that talks about a lot of things, right? Whereas like I don't know anything. So she's like, oh, well, like this means that this is low, this might not be, what the doctor says, we should check this out, kind of thing.
Mm.
um so we've done like, I mean, she's done like lots of tests that, even the doctors don't even, prescribe doing, you know and it's just like the more, it's a kind of a double-edged sword where like the more you know, the more you get uh sort of like, I don't know, like afraid, but the more you kind of like have to know more about
Yeah.
things, because a lot of people are just like, you know what, that's fine, whatever the doctor says I'll just keep doing. But for some of us it's like, no, like it's not just like that 5-minute conversation with the doctor, I need to know more, right? And
Yeah.
that's when the community, then that's when you can get a little bit, into your head about things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Sabrina was saying that you're like the positive, like this is gonna work out sort of one, and she's more of the kind of like, right, we've got to do this, and like the planning and the researching and you know, I think you need that, like in a relationship. Like I can't help but Google, but my husband's the voice of reason, so he'll just like bring me back down to like normal, reasonable things. You know, he's like, oh, don't think that's likely. Let's, you know. So I'm sure Sabrina's like the filter as well. Like she's like, okay, yes, we're looking at this stuff, but this is the thing that you probably are more likely gonna have issues with, or this is the thing, you know, to look
Yeah.
at.
And I think that's great with when it comes to partners to have that, you know, dualistic approach where, you know, that you both support each other and then you can calm each other down a bit, you know? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure she has her moments where she's freaking out and you have to be the voice of reason too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, how has that been? Like, because I mean, us women, we're very emotional, like so emotional. So how has that been sort of, you know, helping her and kind of being that support person? I mean, I'm not on the other end, so I have no idea. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, it's something it comes naturally to me. Like I'm a very, you know, sensitive man. You know, I'm very kind of in touch with my emotions. So like I'm not like a brick wall when it comes to seeing someone that you love like very dearly go through something that is very, very difficult. So I'm a very like empathetic person as well. And I think that kind of empathy like really you really kind of need in a relationship for anything, really, but especially for something when it comes to like IVF, where I mean, I again, like I have no idea, you know, what's going on in her body. Like I and you know, like I administer some of these like shots to her, and you know, see how like things change in terms of like like your body and your mind and your emotions. So I feel like my role as a husband and partner, and also because we're trying to have a family together, is really just to bolster up, you know, what she's going through. So whenever she is going through a troubled time, I'm going through it as well. And I feel it, right? You can't help it. Like for someone that you love, when they're down, when they're depressed, when they're anxious, you get that as well. But you also have to recognize that and see an opportunity to bring someone back up, right? Because it's really easy to fall into that pool and feel yourself sinking, but you need that kind of lifeline, that hand to just like grab and bring you back up so you can breathe again. And it's all about just those kind of mantras and exercises that you can do just emotionally with your partner that can bring them back up. And of course, like I need that as well, right? But seeing her back in a good place after those like troubled times, that what gives me, both like hope and a certain kind of endearment.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's always hard when, you know, your partner's going through something. You have to kind of try and keep a level head and try and help them. But sometimes you can fall into it as well. Like I do find that with my husband sometimes, like if we're going through something tough, like, you know, if he's really stressed out, I can fall into that stress with him. And then I'm like, now we're both stressed. Like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
So I know that can
Yeah.
be difficult
And
too.
it's kind of important to feel that same kind of stress, because they feel that, okay, well, I'm not crazy for thinking this way or feeling this way, because that's not the last thing that you want to feel, that they're wrong in feeling this. But it's really important to get those feelings out and to feel them all the way out, because the last thing you want to do is keep those feelings in. So I think it's really important to like be there with them in that moment and feel things all the way through, feel that tragedy, feel that anxiety, like feel it all the way through so you can come out the other end, and you come out the other end together.
Yeah. Yeah. Have there been moments where like you didn't want to like burden her with how you feel? Like, did you feel like you couldn't sort of show her everything that you were feeling, or did you always feel very open and able to sort of show her what was going on in your mind as well?
I absolutely sometimes held things back. I mean, absolutely, you know. And I mean, for me, that's always been kind of a natural thing that I've done with even like partners before, is sort of to be that kind of like, you know, stoic kind of rock, so that I thought that that was the right way to do things. To be that, you know what, I'm here and I'm strong kind of thing. Um, but I mean, Sabrina's like totally changed me, where I feel like I can be a lot more communicative. But I definitely have been through that where I felt like I couldn't, um, you know, express things in certain moments. But I feel like, because we're still continuing to grow in a relationship, um, but now it's way more communicative, when it comes to all these kind of like feelings and processes.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And I think it's so important, isn't it, to have that connection and actually talk through things and move through them together. Like Eve, like for my husband, he didn't really feel the losses that we had. And so for us, like that communication was so important, because, you know, it was the only way that he could express the fact that, look, I don't really feel these losses, but I feel your pain. I don't want you to be in pain. So it was like we kind of still had that moment together through that connection and talking and
Yeah.
being there for each other. Even though it was more him being there for me because it was me going through it rather than him because he didn't really feel it. But yeah, it can be quite tricky if you've got very different feelings. But how has the grieving process been for each of you? Because obviously everyone grieves differently. So I mean, you said you sort of got to that point where you were like, I just need to get up and do stuff and like get busy. So how did that process kind of go with Sabrina and your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, Sabrina is quite a fascinating human being because like she processes things very, very deeply. Um, and which I absolutely love and really respect, because like she feels everything like very, very deeply, and then it's like she can pick herself up and be like, okay, you know what, we need to make things better. I've never really been like that. So it was a really like big inspiration for me, where it's like, wow, because I'm again like I'm a very sensitive guy, and I can spend weeks grieving, about like a loss like that when you like lose your baby, like, and that hope that you had. But she really showed me like the way to go. Whereas like I felt like I needed to like be that rock and that kind of inspiration on like where to go from here. It was her. It was all her. And I was like, okay, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's let's move on. Of course, we still have our grief, but and then it was like, okay, next steps, because we're not stopping. We want a family. We're do anything in our power to have that. So it's like, okay, this didn't work. We had a tragedy, but it doesn't mean that we still can't have a family together. So it's like, okay, let's do the process again. Let's see what we can do differently. And that really kind of super helped like the process, because if it were left up to me, it would have we would have like waited like a long time. But she is so strong, and she wants to have a family like so much, just like me, that she's just like, no, let's move on to the next phase. Kind of thing.
Yeah, again, it's like that relationship dynamic and how she's like the, planner type. And she said she's
Yeah.
like she's
And,
like the planner person.
yeah, and that really showed me the dynamic of the relationship as well. It's like, you know what, Nick, you're the strong one. You're the rock. Like we're both rocks together. But I was just like absolutely stunned by it.
Mm. No, it's amazing what going through loss and this, fertility journey can do to the mind. And, she's such an advocate. Like, she really advocates for herself, and that's so brilliant. And she does have so much power and strength in what she's doing now. I know she doesn't always feel strong, because none of us women do, but yeah, I see that strength in her too. And I think I told her. But yeah, no, it's good to see, these women push through and feel that like strength, that moment where they're, advocating for themselves and really pushing for that. Has there been any moments where, you had to advocate for yourself more so than you realized you were going to have to?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, because this is my first kind of journey through IVF, I've had a really good support base with my family. They've been extremely supportive. My friends have been like very supportive as well. So I haven't really been put in that kind of position where I've had to sort of like defend anything like that.
Wow, that's really amazing. Honestly, like, most of the stories I hear, like, there's a real struggle, and not like, there's support systems, but they're just not that strong. So that's really lovely to hear. Um,
Yeah, like most of my friends and family, they've been, they're more like rooting, for me because they know how much I want to be a dad, so they want that in any kind of form.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, honestly, like, talking to, all these women and men, I'm just like, I just want you to all have babies. I've gotten to the point
Yeah,
where I just my prayer is like, let them all have the babies, because there's just too many people to pray for now. But
no, seriously.
it's insane. Like, I wish everyone could just have babies, and I think that's the beauty of this community as well. I don't know if you're in the lost space yet, but there's plenty for men too. There's like podcasts and Instagram pages and groups and everything where men like can talk about loss and can talk about their grief and deal with whatever comes up. And it's really growing. It's really amazing, like, the community that has come out of loss. Like, obviously it's really sad to have gone through loss and, the tragedy of it, but there are some really amazing, beautiful, like, groups and people and just community. But you do sound like you've got one, so that's really amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm really, just seeing what, Sabrina does through her Instagram and how the community really supports itself, I think is absolutely amazing because like before Instagram, like, no, you wouldn't have that where you could have all these people connected and can both you no matter where they are in the world, whether it's Australia, the States, the UK, Germany, I mean, that's, I think, one of the good things about, social media and that kind of connection where you can actually have that for, grief and loss and to give, each other hope, that's, I mean, sometimes it's just a really long journey, but it's worth to stick it through if you have these people that can really, you know, give you that little bit of just like hope and dream.
Yeah, so true. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you would want to say to anyone who's maybe going through this right now, alongside you, like they're really in the thick of it, maybe they've even gone through a loss recently? Is there anything that you would maybe give them as advice, like as the male in the relationship?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I think this is a great idea to, talk about the male factor in things as well. And I think that there should be more of a interaction with men. I think men should come to the forefront because right now it's probably like 90% when with IVF communities is women. I think we need to bring a little bit more attention to um, men both with having them supported, because of course they go through loss as well, and have them talk about their stories a little bit more, which is why I'm like so happy to talk with you. But I think that is, I suggest to, any male that, sees this, that, you know, come with your story. People want to hear them, as well as other males want to hear them as well. Like we go through that tragedy, and I think that there should be definitely like connection between men going through this. And I really appreciate you interviewing me for it.
Yeah, thank you. No, honestly, it's, it supports men and it supports women. I was talking to one of the guys from the Guys of Grief, or the Guys in Grief. I can't remember the name of the podcast exactly, but I'll link it below. Their podcast, I was talking to the host, and he was saying that he has a large viewer base of both women and men. And he was saying he gets women saying thank you because they understood more of what their partner was going through. And maybe they actually started opening the conversation up. And he said, like, some people have said, like, thank you, you've saved my marriage, or you've helped my relationship. And I do think, like, people like you coming forward and like talking about your experience can actually make a massive difference in someone's life and relationship, because they're seeing you have the courage to like stand up and go, yeah, I'm going through this, and I have male factor infertility, and it sucks, and this is my journey, and this is what we're going through. And I think that's so important, because so many men, I think, just sort of stay quiet, and they're like, oh, well, it's not me because, she's the one going through all of it. And it's like, yeah, but you do have to go through it too. And you have to go through all her emotions and everything she's going through, and you have to watch it all. And I mean, yeah, we're emotional normally. With added hormones, I could only imagine how intense it can be, especially when you start new protocols. And yeah,
Yeah.
it can be
No,
intense.
I think you nailed it, and I'm really happy that I think that men should open up a little bit more, because they'll realize that there's a whole community out there, for them, if they want it, and they should grasp it.
Yeah, because when I mentioned it to my husband, he was like, oh, I don't know if men are going to want to talk about that. And I was like, I don't know. I think there's going to be men who want to talk about it. And he was
Really.
like, okay. And I mean, he's going to be on the event as well. He's very like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, you've got to do it because you're my husband and I'm doing the event, and it would be weird if you did. And he was like, okay, fine. So he's going to be talking. But he said, like, yeah, I mean, I was like, I've got another male who's going to talk. And he's like, okay. So he's getting
I
more
guess I gotta do that.
confident. And I'm hoping that more men will get more confident because they're seeing men talk about it. So hopefully we'll be able to get more men in the future, because I'm going to be carrying on this even after the event. And so I will send you through the lives so you can see if you want to talk into any of them, because you're more than welcome to join any of them.
Yep.
I know Sabrina is keen to join at least one, so I'll be sending it to her as well.
Amazing. That's great.
Thank you so much for talking with me and joining me and sharing your story and your journey.
No, thank you so much for everything. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Bye.
Wonderful day.
Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.